Hi, this is Lucy O'Hagan from Wild Awake, and today I'm going to talk to you about nettles. So here are some nettles, and I'm pretty sure this is a plant that you will be familiar with, but maybe you just don't realise how amazing the nettle is. And it seems like anytime I lead foraging walks, I always just end up begging people to eat nettles because they're really just incredible. So a little while ago on the page, you will have noticed on the Phoenix Forest School page, one of the young people from the forest school did a video showing you how to pick a nettle without getting stung. So thank you for that, Maud. And I'm just going to go over it again really quickly. So there's a saying, grasp the nettle, which I think is kind of like the carpe diem of the plant world. And if we think about the nettle is covered all over in these tiny little hairs. They're a little bit like nature's versions of hypodermic needles. And at the base of those needles, there's a kind of cocktail of chemicals. So we have something like formic acid, which is what creates that really kind of unpleasant, itchy, stingy feeling. There's also histamine in there and serotonin. So yeah, it's really interesting to think about what's actually happening when you get stung by a nettle. And those little hairs will break off and sit on your skin. So really the worst thing you can do when you get a nettle sting is to rub it, because you're just rubbing those hairs in even more. So imagining all of those hairs sticking up like this, if we were to very kind of gingerly approach the nettle and brush past it, we'll probably get stung. But if we're very firm and grasp the nettle like that, pinching really tight and pulling, we're not going to get stung. I didn't get stung that time. So when we're picking the nettles for food or for medicine, what we're looking for is the top 4 to 6 leaves. So if we pick them off like this, we're actually encouraging the nettle to send up 2 new shoots again, and you can effectively, kind of like coppicing, keep cutting the nettles back and they'll keep sending up new growth. So I'm taking the top 4 to 6 leaves of the nettle. So what is nettle good for? So nettle is essentially like a nutritional powerhouse. It's really like our very own native superfood. It's really full of minerals like potassium and calcium and magnesium. It's really full of vitamins, so vitamins A, B and C, and it's really high in iron and also in protein, something like one of the highest protein counts of any green leaf. So amazing for your body, and traditionally it's used as a blood herb, so as a kind of spring tonic, something to cleanse your blood after a long winter. So it would have been such a welcome sight for our ancestors to see the nettles popping up after a long hard winter of huddling together. So how to cook nettles? Obviously they've got a sting on them, and that sting is destroyed by heating them. So whether that's by pouring boiling water over them, or baking them, or putting them in a soup, or one of the favourites at the forest school is to deep fry them in oil to make nettle crisps. It's absolutely amazing. And another way I really like to enjoy nettles is just to infuse them in vinegar, so usually cider vinegar, and to keep them in there for up to a week, and then strain them out and drink, or to take the cider vinegar as you would maybe in a salad dressing or just with your water. Yeah, so what else with the nettle? There's so many things to think about. We've got our food, so we can make pestos, we can blanch them and freeze them and use them later. We can eat them with scrambled eggs like we did today. Yeah, lots and lots of things. And then later on in the year, as the nettles get taller, the stalks of the nettles, so these bits here, the outer bark of this can be harvested and used to make a fibre. So nettle was a really important textile plant, probably for much longer than we know, because obviously the textile doesn't survive, but we do know that they've been using nettles as textiles back to the Bronze Age. And in Dublin, in Fishamble Street, there's loads of pits that they discovered to be rhetting pits. So rhetting being that process of rotting the fibres to make them stronger and easier to spin into thread. And we can also practice this now, and it's still practiced in lots of parts of the world. Particularly I think it's around August time when they start to get good. They have like a big thick woody stem, and you can take out that outer bark and turn it into twine. So this is my fishing line. So this is made from nettle with an oak gall float, a clay weight and a shell lure. My hook is in process at the moment. And the sides of this basket, this is made from cedar bark, is also stitched up with nettle twine as well. So an incredibly strong, durable material. And I will be doing a video on cordage making at some point as well, because I feel like it's such a good activity to twine away the days at the moment. Nettle shows up a lot in our folklore here in Ireland as well. So it was often considered to be a plant of desolation, of abandonment. So in the Children of Lear, when the children fly back to their home, it is said that it was completely covered in nettles and briars. And there's an old Irish law which forbids people in battle to kill women or children. And if they did, there would be a curse that their heirs would be nettle, elder and corncrake. So all of those being a symbol of abandonment, of the land being left to desolation. But there's also like a really practical aspect to this. So if we think about, nettles quite often grow in land that is rich in nitrogen and phosphates. And so if you're wandering through the woods and suddenly you come across a patch of nettles that's really thick, then it's most likely that there was either a dwelling or animals were kept there in the past. Or if you come to a big tree and there's loads of nettles around the base of it, you can engage your tracking mind and look up the tree, and usually there's some kind of roost up that tree as well, and the nettles are there as a result of all of the bird urine and poo which is falling on the ground. There's also a story of St. Bridget using nettles. Apparently she was caught off guard by people turning up to her house for dinner and she had nothing in the pantry. So she used nettles to make butter and tree bark to make flour. And this might sound kind of far-fetched, but actually nettle works really well as a rhetting agent. So she might have added this to the cream or to the milk what did she do? She added it to the cream and milk, and that would curdle it to make butter. And then also the bark of some trees like birch, which I've done recently, can be harvested and made into a flour as well. So I'm sure I'll sign off and I'll remember a million other things that you can do with nettles, because there are so many. They're also so amazing for our wildlife. And the tortoiseshell butterfly depends solely on the nettle for its life cycle. Sometimes in the summer and in the springtime, you'll come across a leaf which almost looks like it's been sewn shut with silk. And in here will be the eggs of the butterfly. And if you've ever seen this, it's so incredible when all of the eggs hatch and the nettles are just covered in loads of black caterpillars. It's really, really cool. Again, the nettle roots are used medicinally. The nettle seeds are used medicinally as well. They're incredible adaptogens and work with your adrenal system, but I'll let qualified herbalist talk to you about that more. But there's definitely something that I harvest a lot and incorporate into my diet, both as food and as medicine. And then the old nettle stalks themselves are amazing for fire lighting. They're really, really good as you're kind of getting your fire going just after you've added your tinder. So there's really limitless ways to use a nettle, and I don't know how long I've spoken for, but please, please just go and eat nettles and stop going and buying spinach from the supermarket in plastic that's flown across some ocean to get there, that's not full, doesn't have any nutrients in it anymore, when you have things like nettle, and we've got dandelion right here as well. I'll like wax lyrical about the dandelion some other time. And cleavers we've got here as well. There's just so many plants right outside your door, probably growing in a plant pot, maybe growing on your balcony, maybe in your local park, and they're all free and organic and full of nutrients, and there's no packaging, and you get to be outside, which is probably the most important thing of all of this. I always think when I'm gathering wild food or medicine that we're getting nourished in so many different ways. Like, you're getting nourished from the plant itself, you're getting nourished from the bird song, from being with the trees, and yeah, maybe if you're with somebody at this time and practicing this, and generally, like, when we're not practicing social distancing, we are gathering in groups of people, and we're singing songs and we're laughing and we're listening to, maybe we've heard like a jay alarm up ahead, and we're thinking about what other animals could be around us at that time. So yeah, I really hope that we can all do that when this is all over. Thank you for watching.